Three young journalists, Jennifer, Karen, and Vicky, come to the small provincial town of Solvang, located in picturesque California, to report on the annual fair festival. The town is filled with tourists, and the girls anticipate the opportunity to make an interesting story. However, upon arrival, they encounter an unpleasant problem. All the hotels are full. Every attempt to find accommodation fails, and frustration grows. Not knowing what to do, the girls meet a friendly but somewhat mysterious man named Ernest Keller, who owns the local museum. Ernest offers them an overnight stay at his mansion, promising that it will be comfortable and convenient. Although the girls are a bit wary, their desire to find shelter leads them to accept the offer. They follow Ernest to his house, which looks ancient and impressive, with stately facades and expansive courtyards. In the mansion, they are greeted by Virginia, Ernest's wife. She seems friendly, but also a bit aloof. The girls spread out in their rooms and begin to feel a slight excitement. They are curious to learn more about the museum and its collections. However, the setting of the house gives them strange feelings. The more they explore the mansion, the more they notice unusual details: dark corridors, locked doors, and strange sounds coming from the basement. Later, when the girls gather in the kitchen, they begin to discuss their findings. Jennifer is the boldest of them all, sharing her suspicions that there may be something wrong with the house. Karen, more practical and skeptical, tries to reassure her, saying it's just an old house with its own distinctive features. Virginia walks into the kitchen and throws a puzzled look at them, and the atmosphere becomes tense at tea night. The girls decide to have a small party to dispel their fears. They listen to music, laugh, and share stories. But as the hours go by, the house becomes increasingly uncomfortable. Strange sounds, like quiet footsteps and rustles, come from the basement. Jennifer tries again to find out what is going on, but Karen and Vicky persuade her to calm down and ignore it. However, the strangeness intensifies with each passing day. Ernest and Virginia become more and more closed off and strange. They avoid talking about what's going on in the basement, and when the girls start asking questions, they have troubled expressions on their faces. One day, when Vicky decides to go down to the basement, she finds the door locked. At that moment, a feeling grows in her that something terrible is hidden in this house. One night, as the girls are getting ready for bed, they hear a loud cracking noise. Vicky gets up to find out what has happened and finds Ernest standing at the cellar door. He seems alarmed, and Vicky senses that he is threatened by something. With difficulty, she persuades him to tell her what is really going on. Ernest, as if struggling with inner demons, explains that there is something living in the cellar that they must not see. This creature, he says, was trapped there years ago, and he doesn't know how to deal with it. His words horrify Vicky, and she returns to her friends to tell them about it. They decide they must find out the truth and go down to the cellar to see what is really behind the locked door. The next day, they wait until Ernest and Virginia leave for work and, encouraging each other, go down to the basement. As soon as they open the door, a chilling fear grips them. The basement turns out to be dark and damp, with confusing passageways and rusty walls. The girls begin to explore the space, and soon discover several antique objects that no one seems to have touched in years. They go further, and after walking a few meters, they find a strange, huge cage. In it sits a creature covered in wool and looking intimidating. Its eyes glow in the darkness, and it makes vague noises as if calling to them. The girls are horrified by what they see and start to retreat, but Vicky, who is the bravest, decides to come closer. She senses that the creature cannot harm them, but rather that it is suffering from imprisonment. Vicky tries to speak to it, but the creature only looks at her with sadness and hope. The other girls try to pull Vicky back, but she stands still, unable to tear herself away from the creature's gaze. At this point, Ernest and Virginia return home and find the girls in the basement. Anger and fear appear in their faces. Ernest exclaims that they should never have gone down there and begins to threaten, but Vicky, emboldened by her sense of compassion for the creature, says that they cannot leave it in that confinement. She demands that Ernest explain what happened and why the creature is there. Ernest, unable to bear the pressure, tells her that it is his son, who has been turned into a monster by a scientific experiment. Virginia, unable to bear the suffering of her husband, becomes even more gloomy and angry. She starts shouting at the girls, demanding that they leave their home, and threatens to call the police. But Jennifer, Karen, and Vicky realize they can't leave. Knowing the creature is still in danger at this point, the tension builds. The girls decide that they must save the creature. They begin to plan how they can free it, but time is running out. Ernest and Virginia try to stop them, and eventually the fight begins. The girls, full of determination and fear, do everything they can to save the creature's life. Ernest, realizing that his actions are no longer justified, begins to hesitate. Finally, after an intense struggle, they manage to free the creature from the cage. This causes a furor, and Ernest, losing control, starts trying to stop the girls. But at that moment, the creature, despite its horrible forms, shows humanity and saves the girls from their father. The situation erupts into chaos, and as a result of the struggle, Ernest is defeated. The girls finally escape from the basement with the creature. They leave the house and take the creature into the woods where it can find shelter and start a new life. Although they feel horror at what has happened, at the same time they feel joy that they were able to help the creature. Back in the city, they realize that they have done something important and meaningful, and now they have the opportunity to write their report, which will not just be a story about the festival, but a true chronicle of life, suffering, and hope. They decide that they will tell their story, hoping that it will change people's attitudes towards those who are different from them and help others to see that behind every monster there can be humanity.